better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice.
Sorry, fucked it up. Let me start over again.
Okay, start over.
A, B, C. A, always. B, B. C, closing. Always B, closing. Always B, closing. A, I, D, A. Attention, interest, decision, action. Attention. Do I have your attention, Matt? Interest. Are you interested? I know you are because it's fuck or walk. You close or you hit the bricks. Decision. Have you made your decision, for Christ? And action. A-I-D-A. Get out there. You got the prospects coming in. You think they came in to get out of the rain? Guy doesn't sit down at your table unless he wants to play. Sitting out there waiting to roll the dice. Are you going to take them? Are you man enough to take them, Matt?
Rob, some of these other RPG prospect systems, they're not good.
They're not good. You're not good.
All right. Today we're going to talk about how to Glen Ross your players.
That's right.
Howdy, Rob.
Howdy, Matt. Welcome to Dungeon Master of None, everyone. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about pitching a new game to your players. We're talking about, selling them on a new system, a new setting, a new campaign, how to make the switch, because this is a thing that comes up a lot.
Yeah, I think our first part of advice is just trick your players. Just change out all the game materials. Get one of those like slip covers for a book like you had in elementary school, and just paste whatever system you've been playing on top of it, and they'll probably never open the rule book and find out. No, don't trick your players.
Well, no. This is great advice. If you're ever worried about a social situation or uncomfortable having a conversation with someone, just lie. Just create an elaborate ruse so you never have to have that conversation. Then you'll never feel uncomfortable, and nothing bad will ever happen. No, you should talk to your players.
If this was your first instinct, you should be playing Fiasco with your players.
That's right. Do we have the game for you?
How to convince your players to play something else. We can talk about this later. I largely think this is a made-up problem
let's start here.
That gets talked about more on the internet than it does in person. Because we're assuming you have players, right? You have friends. I've never had a group of friends that's like, oh, I only want to eat pizza with you, right?
Yeah.
I only want to watch Martin Scorsese movies with you. I can't watch a different type of movie.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I would say that this is a bigger problem in many people's minds or in the discourse than it is in real life. And, there's two reasons for that. Like Matt said, these are your friends, these are players. You just ask them if they want to play a new game. The other less kindly version of this is that you're the game master. You run the game. So if you want to switch, they either get to come along or they don't get to play a game, right? For most of us, we're not all forever GMs, but if you are a GM, chances are pretty good that you're making the games happen. Now, that being said, I don't think it's good to approach this from a position of my way or the highway. But I'm just saying, if you
want people to be happy, that's the whole point of this.
Which is the point of this episode, is to convince them to gladly make this switch and set yourself up for success. But I guess the broader point is, I agree with Matt that this is maybe a non-issue. And if you listen to nothing else, listen to this where I say, just try it. Just tell your players you'd like to try something else, you'd like to run a different game, and just see what happens. If you've been worried about this, just do it. But don't worry, we'll give you some other advice on how to get there.
Yeah, right. Other advice on how to get there, and maybe a little bit of advice on how to actually just try it, what we mean by that.
Yes. And how to succeed. Because it isn't there is such a thing as the sunk cost fallacy, and this is a big problem with people who have traditionally played very complex games like 5e or Pathfinder. I mean, when I was playing Pathfinder 3.5, there was sufficient game knowledge that I could devote. Sorry, I said Pathfinder 3.5. I meant Pathfinder First Edition. There was sufficient game knowledge that I could devote probably 100% of my TTRPG thought and energy to learning different rules for Pathfinder. And so making that switch it wasn't difficult. I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore. But for somebody who was very invested in the rules of Pathfinder or 5e or 3.5 or another equally complicated system, it may be there may be a reluctance to switch, but it it doesn't have to be a big deal, and it doesn't have to, it's easier than it seems.
Yeah, it's easier than it seems, and I guess I do have some sympathy for people who are, well, I have sympathy for all DMs. I extend my love to all dungeon masters everywhere in the cosmos.
They are all equal in our sight, and yes.
Some are more equal than others. And it's the people who are like, hey, I'm trying to get a game together. Maybe I don't have players, and you're like posting on the local, like looking for group Discord or, the local bar night that has it. And you're like, whenever I run, Traveler, no one shows up. When I run D&D, a lot of people show up. And this is a real marketing problem.
Yeah.
And I guess we should, put the cards on the table. We're talking about 90% of these cases are people talking about, I only want to play D&D, right?
Yes.
But in niche cases, it could be other things.
This is, again, we are almost like 99% of the time talking about exactly one thing, which is getting people who only want to play D&D to play a different system or even a different edition. But it can go in the other direction. It can be an issue to get people to try D&D-like games if they've never played one. So it is, but there is definitely like one type of player and one type of situation where this happens the most often, and that is people who really love D&D and do not want to try something different.
No, and so I understand that, right? People largely know D&D, but anyone who has played role-playing games for any extended period of time understands that there is nothing special about one particular rule system. And, just in my experience, I've had people who've been playing role-playing games and often mostly D&D or D&D clones for 30 years, always willing to try something new, even if it's to decide, well, maybe that particular campaign or that particular system wasn't for us. On to the next new thing we'll try. And brand new people who have only played 2 months of D&D, and they're like, yeah, sure, we'll try something else. So I think people understand that, hey, yeah, a role-playing game is something different. However, if you're in the local looking for group things, I understand people want to go with something that, I've already made a character for this.
Right. And this is the existing advantage of something like D&D, is that all the resources exist for you to go out and make a character and come to the table and say, I've got my first level wizard, I want to play that. But other games have that availability, it's just not quite so readily available. And my experience with this is, when it comes to a group that you have or a group you're putting together, is when you've done this once, it gets easier and easier. Like once people have tried even a second RPG, it becomes a lot easier to convince them to try a third and a fourth. There's a caveat to that, though.
Right. They watch that second RPG and they're like, wow, getting a lot of Boss Baby vibes from this this other, it's very similar to D&D in a lot of ways. We have characters.
That's
and,
right. There's dice and yeah. There's a caveat, though, that there is such a thing as like new system fatigue. If you try to switch too often, people will get tired of like learning new things. So you have to sort of be discerning, and you have to know your audience, whether that's your group that you're putting together or like a local LFG or a pub night or something, and you're having trouble filling seats. You may have to make some changes or some compromises, but even so, it really is, I think, just a matter of convincing people to try things once. And we'll talk about some ways to make it very easy for people to make that first step into trying a different system.
Yeah, and I would say, I think we should get into some of the details of what the do's and do nots here. And what I have seen in my own personal experience, and after reading like 100 posts of this online, is that from what I can tell, the main failing people make is not, they picked the wrong system, it was too simple or too complex or whatever. It's the main failing is that people seem to be pitching systems to their players and not games. And this ties into the main cause of this. It's the marketing problem.
Yes.
If you tell someone who doesn't exactly know what something is, hey, do you want to play Shadowrun? Hey, do you want to play Traveler? They might be like, well, it's effort to look up what that is. Let's just stick to D&D. You're pitching a system and not a game.
That's right.
That's backwards.
That's right. This is great, Matt. So let's now that we're to the core of the issue, it's a it's a marketing problem. It's a sales problem. So let's talk about the elements of a pitch, Matt. Let's talk about the things that go into a good elevator pitch when you're trying to sell
First,
something
you got
to
to
somebody.
get brass D20s, Rob. You know what these are? Brass D20s.
I drove here in a $80,000 Buick, and you came here in a Hyundai. Anyway, the elements of a pitch condensed down from a bunch of like.
The past used to be so cool when like a Buick was like a cool car.
So cool and dumb. You used to smoke inside, drive Buicks, yell at your subordinates, get super rich selling real estate in Chicago. What a time it used to be. So here's the elements of a pitch condensed down from a bunch of shitty pitch decks that I read from business idiots on LinkedIn and made relevant to D&D. So you got to start with a compelling introduction, right? Like you're starting with, here's what we're doing, right? So if you're making a switch, like Matt said, you don't want to open with like you don't want to sell them on the system. Right, this is extremely good advice.
You can't just say, "Hey, we're playing Cairn, we're playing Coriolis." What does that mean to someone who's not as into this as you?
Right,
nothing.
Start with the type of game. Start with the vibes. If it was Blades in the Dark, you would say something like, "Have you ever wanted to do a heist in a post-apocalyptic fantasy Victorian London?" Powered by ghost spirits, or if it was something like Savage Worlds, have you ever wanted to play a high pulp adventure with pirates and Indiana Jones style, punches and swinging off of things? Start with that. Start with a compelling introduction, right? Don't start with the system.
And connect that to like what you already know about your players, right? If you're like, hey, you know how y'all have the most fun when you're just ripping everyone off in our regular fantasy role-playing game and murdering a bunch of people that pissed you off for some reason? What if we played a game where that's what it's about? And like the mechanics encourage that. This is Blades in the Dark, and then go into your pitch, right?
This gets to the second part of a pitch, Matt.
Yeah.
A problem statement. Problem statement is the second part of the pitch. What's the problem? It might be something like, this could be broad, right? It might be like, I'm really tired of running D&D. That's the problem, right? Like, it might be, I'm really tired of running D&D. It could also be something like, hey, have you guys noticed that we spend 2 hours every single night running a single combat and everyone's cranky and tired at the end of that and we don't get to do anything else? And it could be something like, hey, have you noticed how everyone gets really frustrated when they roll a 5 on their D20 and their skill check doesn't go through and we got to like waste a bunch of time? Maybe, steer
Have
away
you ever
from
noticed how all our campaigns are about elves and dwarves? And actually, we're all really into superheroes?
Right. And then you get to the solution, right? The here's my solution to this problem, right? What if we could have combats and they didn't take as long? Here's the game, draw steel, or something like that. It's you're presenting a solution, or like, I'm tired of running D&D. This looks really fun to me. Let's try this instead, right? As part of the solution, a good way to sort of approach, I think, pitching a new system is a comparison. That can be something like, like I said about Blaze in the Dark just now, like you're doing Ocean's 11 style heists in Victorian steampunk fantasy dark London. And for Call of Cthulhu, it's something like you're a 1920s detective. It's a noir, but you're hunting Cthulhu, right? Like do a little like, this and that, or it's these two things mashed together. Give your players something to sort of like situate them. This is This is common in pitching literature, like a comp, like this book is like this other book, like, this movie is like this other movie. Give them something to sort of like compare it to. This is where you just sort of need to know your audience, but it can also be like very broad. Like I said, like I've been saying with Blades in the Dark, I think that would be relevant to like most people. Most people know what Ocean's 11 is. Most people know what like Victorian London is. They can sort of like piece things together. So when you are making your sort of like solution pitch, try to situate it in such a way that they understand what the general vibe is.
I would also add, just connect it to what you find cool about it, why you want to run it. They're already playing in your game.
Yep.
Or assumably that they're just people who like role-playing games, so they're probably going to like and find these aspects cool too, right? Yeah, and that way you're going to be like really passionate about that. And then I would say, Rob, systems fall in like two broad categories, in at least in the starting of a campaign, right? There are systems like Blades in the Dark, where you can describe the system and you're also describing the adventure, the campaign, the game itself that you're going to be playing, because you're going to make up a lot of the other details during that first session. Other games, right, require you as the game master to make some kind of pitch, right, to develop either hey, I've already written this whole campaign, there's a published campaign book that I'm using, or I've got an idea for this that we're going to flesh out with some player feedback. And I would put the emphasis in your pitch, not on the system, but on what that campaign is going to be. Because, right, you can say, we're playing Call of Cthulhu, or you can say, hey, we're playing a game set in 1 year before the San Francisco fire, and you're investigating like a serial killer, right? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. You can imagine the characters that you can make. You give them like, hey, this is the actual game that we're going to play. That is way more exciting to players, especially ones who don't care about systems, or even ones who do. It gives them the like reason to set aside their anxiety about learning new rules or things working differently, to be like, oh, that game does sound great.
Yeah, this is good advice. I mean, if it's a very like weird setting, you want to foreground that so your players are aware that they're not in like a generic fantasy world. But you want to focus on the story, the campaign that you want to tell, right? Like, you're investigating this, the king has sent you to do this. Focus on what type of story you're going to be telling, or they're going to be telling with you. That's a lot more interesting than a bunch of words describing like how the setting, because no one's going to read that. No one's going to read anything about whether it's you wrote it or somebody else wrote it. They may get into it eventually, but when starting out, when reading your pitch, people's eyes are going to gloss over if you go into too many details about like the setting itself.
Right. And I think this applies to even things that maybe your players don't need that contextual dump, right? If you're like, hey, this is a superhero game, everyone knows what superheroes are. If you're like, hey, we're going to play, Fantasy Flight Games, Star Wars Jyn Sys system. Instead, be like, hey, you all know what Star Wars are. I have this idea for a campaign. You're all Knights of the Old Republic, and you're on a mission to uncover like a new Sith empire and defeat them. Or, you're all smugglers sucked into the rebellion, and it's kind of like Andor, right? You get as specific as possible without lore dumping in your players. Things that you can explain in one or two sentences.
Well, and even with something like Ultraviolet Grasslands, which we talked about a few episodes ago, that's a very weird setting that does need some explanation, but you can just say you're doing a Marco Polo style, overland wagon train through a weird science fantasy post-apocalyptic, chromatic landscape. And then, your players know what they're getting into, but you don't need to like go into all sort of great detail about all the city states and things. That'll come out through play, right? But tell them the type of game they're playing, the type of thing they'll be doing, and go from there.
Right. And I think this also applies to systems that are really broad, right? You know, your Savage Worlds, your Fates or something, even
GURPS.
something that has a very specific setting. Like if someone asked me, do I want to play Traveler? I would say, oh, no. But if someone came to me and like, all right, we got this Traveler campaign where you're a squadron of ex-starfighters imprisoned by the enemy. You've misjumped to the other side of the galaxy. And together, you have to make it back to friendly territory while discovering new alien allies along the way. I'm like, oh, that sounds really dope.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. And that's true of how we talk about these games in general, and when we talk about campaign settings, is a lot of that stuff, a lot of that good stuff, if it is sort of like a setting rich system, will come out and play. But whether or not your players need convincing, you don't want to put that up front. It's not relevant. You want to focus on the game, what they'll be playing, what types of characters they'll be building, and how they're going to, the story they're going to be telling.
All right. Are there any other major failings that I think DMs have when they're trying to pull this old switcheroo on their players?
Yeah, well, and we mentioned at the beginning, like, this is your game, so you can kind of decide. But I sort of condensed all the business idiot advice at the tail end of the pitch, because that was all stuff like, who's your
let's
team,
get to some more business
and how much what's your profit margin and blah blah blah. This doesn't matter for your game. I condensed them all down.
Did you
into
do
basically,
some market research, Rob?
That was one of the pitch elements, Matt. Good for you.
Yeah.
The last one was negotiation. I've just sort of like our last bullet point is negotiation. So your players may be like, I don't know, that doesn't sound fun to me, or like I don't want to learn a new system, or blah 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 blah. And you can like give and take some on this, right? You can be like, okay, you don't want to try this game. What if we tried something different? Are you interested in a different type of setting? Don't come with a. Sorry, this is a very important piece of advice that I was going to get to later. Do not come with like a list. Like if you, like me, have a bunch of things that you would like to run, that's okay. But don't present your players with that list. They will not respond positively to being given a menu. You may think this is a good idea. I will say from experience, it's not. But
yeah, 2 max, right?
Think
of it as a
Either
pre-fee
or.
menu.
Yep.
You can
Yes.
either choose the fish or the chicken.
The chicken. But if you personally have like a list and they're like, oh, actually, Blades in the Dark doesn't sound fun to me, then you can maybe be prepared to be like, okay, but like, what if we played Savage Worlds instead? Or what if we played Numenera? Don't go too far on this, but, be prepared to like have a conversation, because they may be like, okay, yes, we're into this, but we have some concerns, and be ready to sort of work with those concerns. Maybe it's you do pre-generated characters. Maybe it's you only commit to a couple of games. Maybe it's you finish the arc that you're currently running, and then everyone's happy to switch. But, the last part is just making sure that everybody's happy, which may not be possible, but you can try.
Yeah. No. I think it's important to remind them to judge their happiness after a couple of sessions of play, right?
Good reminder.
That can be part of negotiation, right? It's to say, hey, we're going to try this. Obviously, if it's not working out, we'll go back to, we'll start a new D&D campaign, right? Mm-hmm. Or we'll try a different system. We're not going to do something that's making everyone miserable. Give them that assurance, and that will assuage a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, an important thing to say throughout this entire process is like, look, if we're not having fun, we won't keep doing it. But, I would like to try something different. Yeah.
Rob's advice on doing a pitch is really good, because I will say I think the main failing is not players being like, I only play D&D, I can only play D&D, I like D&D. It's really on us as game masters. It sucks, right? But it's because what you know is more familiar than what you don't know. And so if you've tried this before and failed, you want to think about like developing your ability to do the steps that Rob just described. Explain what the hell is going on, what this new campaign will be about, and give yourself, Practice, hey, am I able to teach rules as I go, right? Am I able to explain a game that's new to people as they play it? If you're good at those things, doing a new thing will be easier, and players will know it will be easier.
Yeah, and this comes from experience, by the way. Like, Matt and I we read a lot of systems. We've run a lot of different games. We're longtime GMs. I had to learn when I was talking to like people who are not like me and Matt about new games, not to like start with like, oh, it's got this really cool mechanic where you do or like, oh, it's really neat how the system works this way. No one cares about that. I mean, not no one, but few people.
Some people care.
Your players care less, and it took me a while to learn to be like, actually, this is the type of game I want to run. This is the type of story I want to tell, and it was like a matter of learning how to sell games to players. Now, I do want to say I'm mostly running games for either a long-running group or a group of people that I know or people that I sort of know. So, I don't have to do a lot of convincing of like absolute strangers. But a big part of this is trust. Like, people now know me as a competent GM who runs games that are fun. And so if I say I want to run this, I can usually find people who trust me to run that game. That makes making this pitch a lot easier. Now, that trust
this
took
is
years
so important
to build.
Yeah,
so
years.
This isn't like advice that you can just take if you haven't done this already. But like, it is a thing to sort of be aware of. Is if you keep doing it, people will trust you. So this kind of gets back to the thing we said at the beginning. Just do it. See what happens. Start building that trust now.
Yeah, if you were listening to the opening of this episode and our bluster about, well, it's not a problem for us. We don't have a problem pitching to,
right.
Not me, you. It's not our problem. It's not our problem, or a problem that we have because we're better at this than you. If you've had this problem, it's just we have like, our players are our friends, and
right.
often they become our friends through playing role-playing games.
Right.
But now that they're our friends, they trust us. They expect that they're gonna have fun most of the time when they show up. So they're willing to roll the dice and chart a new voyage into systems unknown.
Yeah, and it takes time to get there, I guess, is like the point. So this may not be an option for you, but it is sort of, I don't know, a point of encouragement is if you are running games, especially if you're running games for a long-running group. I have seen this happen, and this Matt and I both read some like Reddit threads about this where somebody has a long-running D&D group, and they're the GM, and they really want to switch, and their players don't want to switch. And that is a rough position to be in, but I think that if you can convince them to make the switch, then you'll have an easier time of doing that in the future, and it will go well for you. And that's what I think a lot of this advice is people like that, because that is maybe the most challenging situation you're going to find yourself in, is like when you have a group that is very comfortable with a specific system and doesn't want to switch, and you are stuck running a game that you're not excited about.
Yeah. I think it would be useful to talk a little bit about like what are the barriers that can make this difficult for you or for your players, right? If we decided that most of the time, but not all the time, it's based on like your ability to actually convince your players to do the sales. What are your barriers that you might be facing? And I thought back to like my past of teaching people new systems. And I think a big barrier is, was I yet a GM that could teach people how to play a new game, especially through play? Like get through enough of the basics and then hand things out and like, we'll pick up the rest of the rules as we go. Or was I still in that stage where I expected everyone, if we're playing a new game, well, you better get a copy of the like pirated rules through a torrent server. So this is dating how long ago this was. Read them and come ready to play.
Right. This is a really good point. It is a lot. It depends on the system. Some systems, I think, can kind of teach themselves, and a lot of the newer games that we've reviewed are really good at this. But you, as the GM, and this is unfortunately more responsibility and more work for you, but you are it is incumbent upon you to teach the new system to your players. I'll go ahead and give an example here. I've recently started running a Daggerheart game. It's been going well, but I dropped the ball. I realized that I had been assuming that my players knew some things about the system, and I hadn't been auditing their characters all that well. And it turned out they were not way less, but a little less powerful than they should have been. They were missing some like character abilities that they should have been adding in, and I wasn't paying close enough attention. No one was mad. It wasn't a big deal. We fixed it like right away, but like that was on me for not paying close attention and not remembering that I have to teach, right? I have to make sure that my players know what they're doing. And this can be easy and this can be hard, and it really depends on the system. With Daggerheart, it was not hard. It was an easy fix. With other systems, it might be a whole to-do, but it is something that, like Matt said, you have to be like, are you a GM who can teach? If not, how can you help? How can you all learn together? What sort of like tools and resources and adjustments can you make for the system? But this is an important thing to know.
This is, I think, this question is perhaps a longer episode about how do you teach a game as you're playing for it? Because one thing that will absolutely be a barrier for you being able to do this is if people, show up for new system, new campaign, and you're like, all right, tonight we're learning the rules. We're going to go over the rules, and that's it. No one's going to have any fun just learning the rules, right?
No.
You've got to come up with a way to like, hey, we're going to start playing, and I'll tell you the basics, and then all the fiddly bits we'll learn as things continue. Some systems work perfectly, are designed to work this way.
Yeah.
Other systems can work this way with a little bit of forethought and planning. Other systems are really bad for this. And of course, your friend is all of the community-generated resources for whatever system or campaign that you've picked, right? All of those one-page summaries, all of the hey, here's that kind of starting adventure that introduces several concepts as you're playing through it, that kind of stuff. There's that video that you're going to watch a couple times before you play.
Yeah. Well, and this is another thing to be aware of, and a thing that will help you succeed in making this switch is you need to know the system very well. I guess you don't have to have complete mastery, but it is helpful and important for you if you want to make a switch to a new system to have read it thoroughly and understand it. This is, again, more work, sorry, but if you have mastery or close to mastery of that system, it is going to be easier for you to sell it, and when it comes time to play, easier for you to make it stick because you're going to be able to teach and understand and correct issues as they come up.
Yeah, and I think the big picture to remember here is if there are rules differences or thematic differences than what you've been playing before, can you understand and explain what those differences are and maybe why they exist, right? Okay, in this game, I have the, darkness pool. And the reason I have that is it can make more interesting challenge or encounters more challenging. And you can give me these points to help yourself out in the short term, but they're going to come back to bite you. And the reason we have this mechanic is because it creates this interesting push your luck tension.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a great example. When there's a, especially for mechanics that are different, right? You're gonna want to if it's Savage Worlds, you'd be like, dice explode. That's what this means, and that's sort of why, the dice explode to have more exciting, dramatic moments and swingier combats, and that's what it means when you're rolling your dice. But you want to definitely, when something comes up that is distinct from the game that you were playing, and we're sort of assuming D&D here, but if you were coming from, I have a player, sorry, this does happen. I have a player who I don't think has ever actually played D&D, and he plays all these other TTRPGs with me. And so whenever I'm referencing something from a D20 game, he's like, I don't know about that. So it is possible to go the other direction. But, if it's If it's something that's like not shared between the two systems, then just be prepared to sort of like explain why it exists and like what the purpose of it is. Like Matt said, how does it fit within the narrative and the story that you're telling?
Here is the last barrier or like thing that you might need to overcome that I have in my notes. And it's going to be a tough one to hear, which is you want to pitch a new system, end your campaign, right?
Yeah.
Move to the final, don't just quit playing D&D. That's not going to encourage the trust of your players. But move to those final 4 sessions. Go back and listen to our arc or our episode on creating ending arcs and ending your campaign. And just like, hey, end it. And then ending a campaign is the perfect time to be like, well, sure, we could go back and to level 1 D&D characters, but guess what? I have this idea for an even cooler game.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned this in that arcs episode, but like this is why I try to run all of my games with sort of like story arcs. I do generally sort of like leave the door open like for those characters to continue, the game to continue. I don't always like, end it finally, but I do, they beat a bad
Rogue One. Everyone makes a sacrifice.
That's right.
It is destroyed.
Sometimes
Everyone's
that does
dead.
happen. Sometimes everyone dies. But you reach you defeat a big bad. You solve a big problem. There's a natural sort of like beat before the next thing happens, and then if you're feeling it, you can keep going. If you're not feeling it, that's a great time, like Matt said. And this is important. I think this is a mistake that a lot of those like long running D&D GMs make, which is that their games don't have any end points. They don't have any like breaks. They're just like one session after another, which is a fine way to
think
play.
about your players. Why would you want to quit when you know
Right.
you're already having fun and
Right.
the game is continuing?
Right.
Well, if you as the game master want to quit in the campaign.
Right. So there's natural ways to do this, and then there's dramatic ways to do it. Have them lose a big fight or have them win a big fight, and you're like, great, you've defeated all the evil, time to retire. But Matt is making a really good point here, which I think is easy to overlook, is end your thing. Like if it's the choice between, let's start over at level 1 or let's try something new, that's a lot easier of a decision for anyone to make than let's continue with the characters that we've been kicking ass with for months or years, or switch to another system.
Yeah. People don't want to give up something that isn't over yet. And I think in the subtext of a lot of the discussion I've seen is that people's D&D games are just in the middle of them. And move it to that end arc. Do that end arc where the players reach the conclusion, solve the final mystery, become gods, kill the big bad evil guy, and then it's over. And then it's much easier. Rob, do you have any other like big advice on like barriers or like how to do this? Should we talk about some examples?
I have some like basic like nuts and bolts suggestions. I have some like easy
Oh yeah, these are good.
tips and tricks. So we've talked a lot about like how to sell this to players, but like they're actually like really like easy things you can do. So like materially, a really easy way, like pre-generated characters. Tell your players, here's the characters that we have, the adventure that I'm running. Pick one and we'll play. That is so easy. I have never had anyone for any system be like, no, I don't want to do that. Like if you hand them a character sheet, it's got all the information on it. That's a really, really easy pitch. This worked really well with the Great Grav Train Heist for Starfinder. I ran that a few times for like local groups, and it's just like, here's these fun guys. I know you don't know how to play Starfinder. It doesn't matter. It's just do you want to like do a heist? And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds fun. So like that's a good way. Another easy thing is be like, here's a cheat sheet. You don't have to read a rule book. Here's all the rules that you need to know. Now, this does not work for every system. It's important to run a system where you can fit all the rules on like a sheet of paper.
Right.
But this is doable, right? And you're like, don't worry about reading the rule book. You don't need to see any of that stuff. Here's a character sheet. Here's your cheat sheet. We're going to play. If we like it, you can get like deeper in. We'll look in the rule book. We'll go further. But like that's a very easy way to sort of ease the barrier to entry.
This is an important point and a reminder that in a vacuum, there are very few systems as complex in their like rules as D&D, right?
That's true.
So there, I don't know if you can fit a cheat sheet of all of D&D 5e's rules on a single page. Maybe you can if it's double-sided, but most other systems, it fits on one side.
Most of the time it does. The other easy thing to do, just tell your players it's going to be a one shot or like a 2 or 3 shot. Just say, hey, we're going to do this for one session. We're going to play a short adventure. That's, if we like it, we'll play more. Or don't even say that. Just say, hey, I want to run something else for a session or 2. That's way easier for people to agree with than, a huge campaign.
And since our other campaign with the system I don't want to run anymore is over, what else are we going to do?
Yeah, what else are we going to do? Again, this is
I
where
think
it comes to sort of like the tell, don't ask. You don't have to like bully them into it, but you're like, hey, we wrapped.
No.
What if we tried this next week instead? That has never failed for me. Like Matt mentioned, there are situations like if you're trying to like recruit strangers where you may have to actually make a pitch. But if it's like a regular group or even like a semi-regular group or even people this is really easy. Be like, hey, just show up next week. I'm going to give you a character and a cheat sheet and we're going to play a thing. That is such an easy thing for people to agree to.
Yeah. Now, I think we have actually, in Rob's last couple points, answered like what we meant at the beginning of the episode when we mean just try it, right? Follow these simple steps into your campaign, make a 1-shot or a 3-shot, make the handouts, craft your pitch of explaining what it is to the players, prep how you're going to teach the rules to play. That's how you just do it.
Yeah. I have one last piece of advice that's more like conceptual. And this is for like if you're really struggling to convince a group to switch. And there's, I think, 2 ways to go about this. I actually think that one is easier than the others. But like say you got a group that just has always played D&D. They're stuck in the mud, they're stuck in their ways. They're curmudgeons. They really don't want to. I think you have 2 options available to you, right? You can pivot to something that is familiar. You can be like, let's try Cairn instead. Let's try Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's a lot like D&D. Rules are a little simpler. Let's try that. Or even let's try Pathfinder if they somehow haven't tried Pathfinder. Like, let's do something familiar.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something like Daggerheart or Draw Steel now, which are also kind of familiar. But like just say, hey, let's pivot to something close. That may actually be harder. Even easier, I think sometimes, is to go in the absolute opposite direction and play something that is in no way resembles D&D. That has no rules overlap. Like we're going to play Apocalypse World or even like if they like, I don't want to learn any new rules, do super rules light. Be like, tonight we're playing Honey Heist or Big Gay Orcs. Just show them that that you can have a 1-page RPG that's fun to play, that you don't actually have to like do any real prep or learning for, and it's just easy to like look at the sheet and just like run it. This can be a way to like break people of their preconceptions about like other games.
I think this is so important, and thank you for bringing it up, Rob, because I think we've skipped over it. I think a lot of the assumptions and a lot of the people who have this problem, I would guarantee put high odds that their players have only ever played one role-playing game.
Yes.
Now, there's probably plenty of cases where, I've tried all of them. It's just this one that I like. But no, it's mostly because they've never tried anything else. And those rules light 1-page RPGs are a great way to get over that. If your group is dramatic storytelling people, maybe something really weird like Alice is Missing is your one night, one game only.
Or like Everyone is John. Do something weird. Another good one is Lady Blackbird, which is really rules light and has like the adventure written into it. That's a really easy one shot. These again, this assume Matt's right. There may be some people who have tried other RPGs and they're like, no, I like this one. But there are a lot of people who have only ever tried one RPG. Generally, it's D&D, but there are others. And I think just showing them that there are other options is a good way to make it easy to switch. But you gotta convince them, and then there are good options for that.
So I'm thinking back over my experiences with this, and just kind of edge and corner cases is the territory I'm in now. And I've never had like, I've got one holdout who's not like, I can't ever play a game with a percentile system or a dice pool system. Never had that. I have had people in my games who are my friends and are my players and I want to make happy, who are like, I really just don't like sci-fi. Like, I'm a fantasy person.
Yeah.
Right. And I haven't like come up with a good solution for that. You know, I think it is like a really corner case. Like most people who like fantasy, like sci-fi, or sometimes it's more like thematic in like morality. Like, yeah, I don't want to play like an evil vampire, or I also don't want to play a good vampire that's like dealing with this curse. I just like don't want to deal with this. I don't want to play a spy. I don't want to play a government agent. I want to be a big hero is the other one I can think of from my examples. And for those, right, oftentimes the like game setting and rules can be tweaked somewhat. And then, but yeah, that is a sticky problem that I haven't encountered, or I have encountered before that I don't have like a great solution for.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting one, and I also don't have a great solution for this.
But again, this is like one objection out of like 2 out of 100 people.
No,
so it's a real corner case.
This is a good one though. This is a good thing to be aware of, because what we don't want is for you to like get all excited about a new game and then come to your players and get hit with something that like stops you in your tracks, which is why it's good to have options. But like I took some of my D&D players who had only ever played D&D 5e with me over to Cyberpunk. That was fun, but they trusted me. The only reason that worked is because like they were like, sure, Rob, we'll do it. I taught them how to run the system. I basically like led that entirely. They were definitely at points being like, whoa, this is a whole different vibe than D&D. And I think ultimately they liked it, but it was at times
people are smoking silicon chips like cigarettes.
Right. Whoa,
Rob,
that guy just got shot in the head. That didn't happen in D&D. Yeah, it's just right. It was fine, but I think like with a group that didn't trust me to like run a good game, it would have been a lot more dramatic, because there were parts they didn't love and they came around on like as we were playing. It was definitely one of those things like, hey, give it another session or two, and they did end up liking it. But I was lucky because I had a group that was like willing to like try a thing just because I said, let's try it. But you may not have that luxury. And I if I could do it again, I think I would have done a better job of sort of foregrounding the thematic differences so that just so they were aware of them.
Right. And for the genre and I guess theme holdouts, I think it's important to remind them, hey, during our session 0, if we do end up doing a campaign and not just one shot, we're still going to do our kind of like, whatever your favorite like outline as a group, what this campaign is going to be about, red, yellow, green checklists, stars and wishes, or one of the million other things. Or if you're that like genre holdout, be like, you may only enjoy reading fantasy over sci-fi, but remember, like, you also just really enjoy role-playing games,
right?
So
right.
What can we do to adjust the themes of this so it hits the same theme, even though you don't like, maybe instead of playing Cyberpunk, we'll play Shadowrun and you can still be a wizard.
yeah
that sort of negotiation piece.
Yeah, well, and I think this gets back to another piece of our advice. Just ask them to try it for a session or two. Like, hey, I know you love fantasy. I know you only want to read wizard books. Give this science fiction setting one session. You can make any type of guy that you like. It'll be fine. And my feeling is that generally most people are going to warm to it after a session or two, maybe not even that long. If they then don't, I guess like at that point I'd be like, well, I can trust that you're really serious about being only into fantasy, and I will adapt, because at least we've all been honest with each other about like what it is that we like. But I think that it's less about convincing like a genre holdout or like a theme or like vibe hold out entirely and just more about like, hey, just give this a try. And then, yeah, if it turns out they really, really mean it, that they are not into this type of thing, then yeah, you can go from there.
Thinking back a little bit further, like with another example, someone who just did not like superheroes, it's like, well, as long as this, remind people this will not be the only game we ever play forever. It's not like,
right.
Sure, we played D&D for 5 years. Now we're going to play Champions, superhero game for the next 10 years. You're going to be stuck in superhero hell forever. No, well, I've got this one specific campaign, and we're going to run it. And I get that superheroes are not your favorite thing, but these are your friends too. Do you still want to do it? If not, we can come back to the drawing board. Usually, I think the negotiation will go your way.
Yeah. Again, there are corner cases. Anything could happen, but I do feel like most of the time this is going to work out in your favor.
Yeah. I feel like the thing is, the more if you have holdouts, the more specifics you can find out about their objections.
Mm-hmm.
The more you can figure out ways around them, or to help them understand why maybe that's not such a big deal.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some of your examples, some of the examples that we found.
Yeah. Okay, here are all posts that I found from searching my players only want to play D&D. And I think these are all from either Reddit or EN World. This first one reads, I've been running D&D in some format for 10 years. I want to try something new, and my players are clearly wanting to try a new character in our long-running campaign. I thought it would be a good time to bring up an intern campaign so we can all get something different bug out of our system, and maybe if they liked it, we could convert that in the future after our current campaign has run its course. I'm so tired of D&D. I want something different. I've played in many other systems, and I like all of them, but this is the best group of players I could ever ask for. They are on time, engaged in the story. They're my friends outside the hobby. For some reason, they are pushing back on this switch, and I want some advice on how to convince them that nothing will happen to the long-term plans of our D&D games.
Man, this one is interesting. I totally get, like, I get that you, like, actually, like, I get this a lot at this stage in my life. If you have a good group that shows up, pays attention, like wants to play, doesn't make things difficult for you, you want to keep them. You want to keep that group together, right? You want to keep playing with them,
right?
You as me as a GM, you as a GM, that makes your life a lot easier. I'm sort of bewildered by, though, this group that is otherwise so good, not being amenable to switching. And I gotta imagine that, like, maybe this person, sorry to blame the victim, I guess, but like is making a mistake somewhere in how they are selling a change to them. Because, like, if they're this engaged, you should be able to get them to try something else.
Yeah, I think the telling part is, how do I convince them that nothing will be happening to the long-term plans of our D&D games, right?
Yeah.
They want to keep playing D&D because they're still in the middle of the campaign.
Yeah.
It's been going on so long that they want to try new characters. My advice to this person would be to wrap up your campaign, or come to, as Rob put it, like one of those interim stopping points where, like, characters retire and the main thread is dealt with, because they're like, wait a second, we just want to keep playing this because we are having a lot of fun right now.
Yeah, this gets back to Matt's very good point. Yeah, at this point, you want to drive toward an end. Put the big bad right in front of them, reach a stopping point, reach an arc, have them have things slow down so they can retire. But yeah, if you're in the middle of something and everyone's having fun, then, oh yeah, of course they're not going to want to switch. But, like, that's, the story that you tell maybe has an end point or a stopping point. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a long running table with rotating GMs, and I remember once we played like City of Mists for a year, and then we went back to D&D, which we had played a long time ago. Like it is entirely possible to go back to D&D. It is.
This is actually, sorry, this is a really good point. We have not mentioned this, but you can go back. Like I have also picked up campaigns that like a year later that we dropped to try something else. I mean, my feeling is that if you want to switch, you want to switch, and so you shouldn't like leave the door open to like go back. But like that is always an option, even if you don't like present it as one. Like, you know, it does not actually mean if you switch another campaign that you can never return to D&D or even to the campaign that you were running. But yeah, you know, try something new.
Here's another example. I've been DMing for my group for about 6 years. We have weekly games, which is amazing. My issue is that I am interested in trying other games I've already purchased or owned that I played with friends when I was younger. I have in the past managed to get through probably 4 months of Dark Heresy 2nd Edition before my players just wanted to go back to D&D 5e. I have talked to them about how I'd like to try Soulbond, Vampire the Masquerade, Fallout, and a few more. The problem, my players look into the games to indulge me, and then they just say they would rather stick to D&D. I don't hate D&D, I just want to change, and my players don't. I don't want to upset the table, so I don't pull I'm the DM, so we're playing another game, deal with it card. Having a group that happily gets together once a week is rare, and I wouldn't want them to walk away. Recently, we all had a talk, and it was basically made clear that they just don't want to try other systems, so I said I would stop suggesting, though I am kind of disheartened by this. I don't mind being the forever DM of the group, but I always wanted to try other settings and systems to test myself and to show people the settings I enjoy. All right. What would your advice be to this?
This one's
DM?
interesting. Well, I think this DM borked it, and I'm sorry again to blame them. But based sort of like reading in between the lines, it sounds
I blame
like
the Dark Heresy rules.
well, that's a rookie mistake. Trying to play Dark Heresy, but also it sounds like he's giving them. I'm assuming this is he. They are giving them rules and being like, "This is what we want to play," and that, as we have discussed at length, is the wrong tactic. Now, the problem is that the players have now said we don't want to play any other rule sets, and that's kind of rough. But I think that...
if my DM sent me the PDF of the Fallout rulebook and be like, here, learn this, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. This is a rookie mistake. The GM should have just said, hey, we're going to try something new. Here's some pre-gens. Here's a cheat sheet. But instead, they're handing out rule books and being like, read this and get ready. And that, of course, the player's not going to want to do that. So the advice I would give is to try just saying like, hey, I know that I told you I wouldn't do this anymore, but like next week, I'm going to run this instead. You don't have to read anything. You don't have to prepare. I'll make it easy for you. Just come and let's try something different. They still might not like that. And they did say we don't want to try any new systems, but I think the problem is definitely that the GM was doing like the wrong order of operations, was giving rules first instead of story first.
Yeah. Do the campaign pitch first. I also think there's a lot telling in that the only time they left D&D was probably for a grueling and incomprehensible and rules heavy Dark Heresy second issue.
Yeah.
My other guess is that it's rare to have a group of 5 people, and even rare to have a group of 5 nerds who all know enough about Warhammer 40,000 lore for Dark Heresy to be interesting, right? Because it's only interesting if you like know about this stuff, right?
Right. It's not like Rogue Trader where you don't really need to engage super hard with the
Dark
40K
Heresy is
lore.
like you got to know the like tenets of the God Emperor's Church,
right?
And, like,
right.
What the different
invested,
type?
Yeah.
Rob, can you name the 4 Chaos Demon gods?
No. Wait. Tzeentch, Slaanesh.
Okay, that's 1, 2,
Khorne,
3,
Nurgle.
Yeah,
Did I
you
get
did.
him?
Okay, listen.
Yes!
If you can't, Rob, but you still failed. If you can't just rattle them off,
No, that was hard.
Right?
It was really
You're
hard for me
not
to come up with the
ready
last
for
one.
a Dark Heresy.
that was actually maybe one of the hardest trivia questions I have ever had. That was digging deep.
You did it, but like, there are certain campaign settings, right? That just really are not going to work for certain tables, right? I guess we mentioned it very briefly, but this is a reminder that, like, yeah, you can pitch the system you want to play. Again, not
sorry.
every game setting is made for every table, and not every game system is for every group of players.
We've alluded to this, but like, know your audience, right? Like I have mentioned, I run a very infrequent Invisible Sun campaign sometimes with one of my long-running groups that's full of hyper nerds who have read a bunch of TTRPGs. I would never pitch that to like an ordinary group of people generally, because it's too fucking weird. It's an auteurs game, right? So like, I knew not to like bring that to my regular group that just wants to sit down and roll dice. I wouldn't necessarily run that at like a con or something. So like, be aware. And I, there are other games that are extremely niche to me that I would, as much as I love them and I'm excited about them, I wouldn't necessarily bring them to every table. Sounds like a big mistake here with starting with Dark Heresy.
Yeah. Here's another quick one. Been playing 5e for 2 years now and been the GM for the majority of that time. Recently stumbled upon Coriolis. I've always been more of a sci-fi fan than fantasies. My players were so excited to play in space, and we read the setting and about the lore, so I went ahead and bought the book and one adventure. Really excited to get together on Discord and talked about this. Showed them the book, and they noticed that's a different kind of system, and now they don't want to play. I don't want to change Coriolis' system to fit 5e because that wouldn't be as fun, in my opinion. What should I do?
The problem with all these, Matt, is they've already made the mistake that we would have told them not to do, right? Like,
yes.
Listeners, I don't think we need to tell you what the problem here is, right? Like, if they had sat down at the table with some brief information, the right dice, maybe some character sheets in front of them, or they'd sat down and made characters, I don't think there would be this
Told
problem.
them about the setting and lore. They were excited about that.
Good. That was good. Yes. And then the mistake comes, right? Like, don't show them the book. Don't tell them about the system. Just sit down. We're playing, and if they're like, well, this isn't like D&D, be like, that's okay. Here's the dice you roll. Let's just play.
This is the dark truth we all must admit about role-playing games is some are better than others. Some are actually really good. But 99% of role-playing game books suck ass. They suck.
They're bad. We read a lot of them, and they're not very good. They're hard to understand.
Not a thing you should share unless you already care about the pitch, right?
No.
Care deeply. You share the rules section with your players after the first section, the first session or something. It is okay. Okay, I've got one more, and this one was, I really have no solution for this one, Rob, because it's a post, and again, these are all from Ian World and Reddit. They could be made up. We don't know, but it's a post from a player, Rob.
Oh, okay, all right.
And the title
it could be made up, but like, why would you make up something about this? Like, if you're gonna troll,
this
why
is too weird. Yeah. Okay. The title of the post is, "Hey, it's me, the guy at your table who only wants to play D&D."
Okay, never mind. This is funny. I think I've read this one before. Continue.
Okay, cool. Here's it's a really long post, so I chose, I think, the main heart of it, right? I know for sure it's not the other systems. Though other players aren't at fault either, it's me. There was a time when I was said, I don't have the time to learn other systems. The truth is, I like playing 5e because it's the least effort for me. This is a fundamentally different from being a hard system to master, because with the exception of Pathfinder 2e, all the other systems I've tried are less mechanically demanding. It's that D&D 5e is by far the system that I can put the least amount of effort into while still being an active contributor at the table.
I've read this post. It's a joke, and I like it. We should link it because I've read this.
Oh,
one
is
before.
it a joke?
Oh, it's a joke. It's somebody like making fun of the type of people that we are talking about. Like it's a stereotype. Like it's
nice.
It's intentional. It's good though.
I did not know this was a joke. This is what I get for lazily searching. I don't want to play anything but D&D and not reading the comments. So yeah. That's great.
they're taking the piss, Matt, and I like it. But we should link it. It's a good one. I mean, this reminds me of something.
Oh man, I got. Oh, that's
You
good.
got. This reminds me of something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read online, saw on TikTok. I don't know. Your brain wants like it's evolved for comfort and familiarity. So like you will prefer something that is like painful and unpleasant but familiar to something that is like genuinely like pleasurable and comfortable but is new and different, right? And this is not just about like TTRPGs. It's about like everything in life.
Give me
right?
give me a Lay's potato chip.
That's right. And this is a
to
fight that we are all having with ourselves and each other all of the time. There's something to be aware of. But like, this is the main problem with like trying to get people to switch to anything, including a new RPG. And everything we've been discussing are various psychological tools. Because like, once you are no longer unfamiliar with the new thing, it's easier to try, and you can sort of like more accurately judge if it's better or not. But it is often very hard, whether it's a TTRPG or a new house or relationship or something, to switch to something that's scary. So all the things we discussed are ways to make it less scary for your players. And the joke person that Matt just read just got by.
Yeah. I know. I'm very relieved this is a joke, because I was just like, I think my solution is just to exclude this person from the next campaign. I was just like, I can't believe this. On that, learn how to market your games, learn how to market specifically, not your game systems, your campaigns. Try something new. You deserve it. You've been putting all the hard work in as a GM. Just remember, come up with a catchy phrase. Traveler, it's toasted. You're Don Draper. Have at it.
That's right.
Or if you want to, get more marketing tips, Dungeon Master of None is sort of like a pyramid scheme, and at the top of the pyramid scheme are Rob and Matt, and at the bottom are you, the listeners. But in the middle, the tasty middle, which is where you want to be in a pyramid scheme, is our Patreon, which is available at patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None, where you get some extra bonus episodes and a bunch of other fun homebrew. We've got what was our most recent episode on Patreon is we take some
agnostic.
We do some live prep. Yeah.
Live prep. We
cool.
did a very exciting, fun prep method. Agnostic. Before that, I went insane and talked to Matt
really
about
did.
Mad Investor Chaos and the Woman of Asmodeus, a 2 million word fanfic about Pathfinder and math. You should listen to that one just so that it justifies me spending time on it.
Then before that, I went insane.
That's right.
Going into how maybe a minor YouTube channel and Kickstarter might have paid for views, and
Patreon is where you put the fun
kind
stuff.
Of a
people, you
it's
really ought to
real
listen
weird.
to it.
It's real weird.
Anyway,
I'm still thinking about the Mad Investor Chaos people, by
too.
the way. Like, I'm thinking about them like once a week, which is way more than I've ever thought about rationalists in my life, right?
I know, unfortunately.
It's really unfortunate. I may never be able to run Hell's Rebels now. Celiacs might ever, that's not true. It might never be scarred for me. All right. And we've got a
Coffee is
Discord.
for closers,
and
so is Patreon. We got a Discord, like Matt said.
Thanks for listening.
Link in the show notes. Email us at dmofnone@gmail.com. And remember, whatever you do, always be keep rolling them dice.